This episode of Hockeytown West Podcast is brought to you by Manscaped. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to announce the smooth sack summer is officially upon us. When you're playing in the summer sun, make sure you're groomed from pubes to bum. Thanks to our friends at Manscaped, you can make this season your smoothest yet. The Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the ultimate bundle to keep your boys downstairs cool while looking hot. Join the 10 million men worldwide who trust in Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Get 20% off plus free shipping when you go to manscaped.com and use code THPN. Summertime and the trimming is easy.
This is your place for all things Grand Rapids Griffins and all things Toledo Walleye. This is the Hockeytown West Podcast with your host, Brandon Cook and Nick Harrington.
Welcome to the Hockeytown West Podcast, your source for everything Toledo Walleye and Grand Rapids Griffins hockey. I am one of your hosts, Brandon.
And I'm Nick.
And I am Travis, and we are very excited to welcome today's guest, a legend in the eyes of Toledo hockey fans. He was drafted in the third round of the 1989 OHL draft by the Oshawa Generals, where he played 3 seasons, winning a Memorial Cup in the process. After his junior career, he came to Toledo, where he would go on to become a 2-time Riley Cup champion, spending parts of 6 seasons in Toledo, and was later inducted into the Toledo Hockey Hall of Fame. After his playing career, he went on to write a book titled The Long Car Ride Home, and now coaches youth hockey. Please welcome to the Hockeytown West Podcast, the Diesel, Mark Deazeley.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
How's he doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. So I got a workout in. I got some accounting clients I got to work on, and I'm a little bit of a day trader. So today wasn't as such a good day as the other day, but it was a situation where I battled back from a huge loss to have a tiny loss. So other than that, today was wonderful.
I'm very excited to do this with the guys and kind of give them some insight into what this city loves so much about hockey and the history of it, because there's so much of it. And you are a huge part of that. But we're going to start with your OHL days, and then we're going to kind of transition into Toledo, and then we'll talk about your book, and then we'll go into your youth coaching.
Okay, sounds good.
So to start, what was it like to be a part of a Memorial Cup championship team? I mean, that is like the ultimate goal of being a major junior player.
It was an incredible experience. I was a rookie, however, and that hockey team had, probably 7 to 9 guys that got a taste of the National Hockey League. So getting in the lineup was a très difficile, as said. So I only saw 27 games that year, and throughout the playoffs, I'm happy to say I sampled all the hot dogs in different types of arenas because I was a healthy scratch the entire playoffs. So Kingston, great hot dogs. It's like Kitchener, killer hot dogs, man. So that was kind of my experience the first year. And when you're on a team like that and you're like one of the spare players and a rookie, it's great to have that experience. But I guess the flip side to your career is that if you got, I always say, like, the best thing for any kid going into junior A is they join a last place team, because they had a run and they've probably gotten rid of their veterans. And as the saying goes, if we're going to lose young, right? So that way you're getting a lot of ice time, and you're out there getting your ass kicked. But the second year, because you got that extra ice time, I think it's a lot more beneficial for someone in a junior career to go to a weaker team as opposed to a Memorial Cup team. But that being said, yes, I have a Memorial Cup ring, and it was a great experience.
Did you get to watch this season's Memorial Cup, or do you still follow it at all? I know you're way out. I follow it
a little bit when it's on the Hockey Network here. I'll try and catch a semifinal or final game, and of course, you just go to Instagram and you'll see who scored the winning goal. And Saginaw got it. Unfortunately for the London Knights, it sucks to come that close and not get it. But I follow it as much as I can. So,
any thoughts on it and how the game played out? Obviously, big London Knights fan here.
Well, I mean, if you're going to vote for someone or root for someone, I root for a London Knight team. I'll be honest with you. I just saw the final goal, so I didn't really see the game. But I can be in that situation, like both winning and losing. Like I can feel their pain. Right. That's part of my book. And talk a little bit about is like I'm kind of empathic based on my background of being abused in childhood. So I have the unfortunate situation where I have to feel everyone's pain, like, probably double or triple than other people. So anyway, it sucked for the London Knights. So what can you do? Yeah,
it was a close game.
Yeah, it was. What was it like being drafted into the OHL?
I always tell people, because I'm coaching 15-year-olds. I remember, I think when I was around like 14, I went to my mom and said, it'd be really cool if I could make it and play a little bit of junior B. This is when I was playing like 15U AA. And then what happened is I got recruited from a guy named Ed Robichaud with the Young Nationals, or they're called the Young Nats, 16U AAA, or, they called midget at the time. And he just kind of trained me into like becoming a battering ram. Like I was fully grown at 16. Like I was probably 6'3", 220 pounds. And that's like when I see the kids I coach now and they're like the same age as me right now, I just look at them and just say, like, I would annihilate you kids. Like you have no idea what kind of demon would be coming towards you at 220 plus pounds when the biggest guy I've seen so far is 160 pounds soaking wet. So, I mean, that was my job. And then all of a sudden I was like, hey, you're going to be drafted in the first 3 rounds of the Ontario Hockey League. And we have an agent for you. And it was just like, okay. So it's just like, just go with the flow. Right. And before you know it, I'm drafted by the Oshawa Generals, and I made their team. And, one thing that's not on my hockey stats that year is I played the 27 games I did play with the Oshawa Generals. I also played a handful of games, maybe 15 or 20 games with their junior B team. So I would say for any young kids going in the Ontario Hockey League, and maybe, I don't know if they do it the same way. Like I had to sign like an AB contract my first year. And I was kind of upset about that because, hey, I'm a 3rd round draft pick and I got a point a game in exhibition games. Like I belong here. Why do I have to sign an AB contract when this guy gets to sign an A contract? You'll want to do that. Don't do that. That's just ultimately really immature. And ultimately I was, emotionally immature at that age, but it is what it is. So, but if you get yourself in that situation, it's better to play games than just sit on the sidelines. So if you're one of those OHL players, it's just kind of on the cusp, like just try and get in as many games as possible and have a positive attitude about it.
I like that. Now you mentioned though, you got to watch some of those playoff games, right? What did that do for your development first year there, getting to actually sit back and step back and watch those games take place?
Well, obviously, watching Eric Lindros play was something special. Getting the systems down. I mean, like I said, that team had probably 7 or 8 guys that went to the National Hockey League. So even just getting the opportunity to practice with them and compete with them in practice, I'm sure definitely helped improve my game. But but sitting on the sidelines sucks. I mean, when you're a healthy scratch, and like I said, I mean, back then you could probably get away with eating a few hot dogs. Now they're super conscious on nutrition, and you got to weigh in all the time. So, that may not be advisable. Come to think about it now, maybe I should have laid off some of the hot dogs when I was a healthy scratch. So, just word to the wise for young OHL players coming up in the game.
It's crazy how much the game's changed, right? So you speak of Eric Lindros, right? What was it like to play with him? I know he wasn't at like is the NHL level yet, but you could probably have a feeling that he was going to be there.
He was. I met him when I went to North Toronto High School. I just want to get this on record. See, Eric Lindros is in the Hockey Hall of Fame. The only reason he's there, a big portion of that, is because of me. Okay, so we met in high school, and I got to know who he was, and I was playing for the Young Nats, and he was playing Junior B with St. Michael's. So he's a year younger than me playing Junior B. So we would get together in his backyard, and we would play keep away, and his brother would come out and try and keep the puck from each other, and then that would turn into like kind of somewhat pretend fisticuffs that sort of became real fisticuffs. So Eric got someone to battle with that was as big as him. So not a lot of people know that about a situation in me and Eric. So yeah, and then also when we were on the road in Sault Ste. Marie, and when Eric Lindros was getting death threats, I just want to thank the Oshawa Generals that they put me in the same room with him. So, at that point, just like, who's the most expendable player on the team, right? We'll put Deazeley with Lindros, right? So like done deal. So anyway,
what was that like a big? Were you like his big brother, kind of little brother kind of situation with Eric then?
Yeah, probably, because I knew him before he joined the team. So like I was kind of like his entry or like his friend to kind of make him feel like kind of comfortable, coming in and joining the team. So that was probably like my biggest role in helping the Oshawa Generals win the Memorial Cup that year.
Keeping him out of trouble and keeping him on the ice.
Exactly.
What other adjustments from like major juniors to professional hockey? What did you end up having to do, or did you have to face when you were making those changes?
Well, I mean, major junior to professional hockey. Obviously, when you're 6'4", 230 pounds, and marginally talented, you're gonna if you want to play, you're gonna have to fight, and that was kind of the expectation. Is like, people always say, "Oh, I wonder what it would like to be like born like big or be the biggest guy," or what I mean. It's like, it's not all cracked up as you think it is. It's like if anything goes south on the team, I have to take care of it. If something goes wrong, I have to jump in and deal with it. So it was like I didn't have a choice. I mean, like I said, Mario Lemieux, when he was playing junior, like, he doesn't have to fight because he's scoring like 300 points. So like I said, when you're marginally talented and you're this big, you have to hit, you have to fight, otherwise you're considered soft. So anyone coming up into the junior ranks, and you're a 6'4" kind of big fella, and you're not going to put up 50-60 points as a rookie or first year, get ready to start throwing hands, because that's what's going to be expected of you. Did
you like playing that style of like the bruiser, the enforcer, or did you want to play a different style?
It was, I talk about in my book, I was supposed to be a natural gunner. All right. I'm supposed to be the goal scorer in my mind. That's what, growing up playing hockey, I had one of those fathers that scoring goals meant everything. And I think that's a lot to hockey parents. It's like, well, my son scored 2 goals. Just sometimes you score a goal doesn't necessarily mean you played a good game. I remember one game in Toledo, after the game, McSorley looked at me and goes, "All you did today was score 1 goal." Like, and that was it. It's like sometimes for a hockey player, like scoring a goal the first shift is like a kiss of death for your game, because then you're like, wow, I got a goal. Now I can like kind of put it on cruise control. I mean, consciously say that to yourself, but there's just something innate where you get some good luck in the beginning of the game, kind of affects your game. Like almost you're not quite as hungry anymore, to go out there and perform. So, but yeah, that was something I enjoyed. Was the goal scoring of the game, and I really enjoyed the hitting and in fight. When you get into fighting, let's be honest. I mean, you guys you're bare knuckle fighting. There's a possibility of getting hurt, the possibility of getting knocked out, And the only way you learn is to get in there and kind of take your lumps, So, listen, nobody likes getting beat up, but that's kind of part of the game. And you look at any of the top enforcers, their first handful of fights, they probably lost, but you have to, you have to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, have a short memory. And when the next one goes, you're going to be more experienced. And once you get more experience, you get more comfortable doing that. But is that something, was I a natural born killer? No, not at all. I mean, probably I was kind of made that. I always joke, I said I was made that way through years of systematic abuse in the Ontario Hockey League and playing professional hockey that, I became the way I became. It's kind of like you get two dogs and you put them in a pit and you get some flags and wave them around, and the dogs come and they jump, and they you get two sets of dogs. You get other two dogs and you light firecrackers behind them, and then they go fight 100 times. You get two different kind of dogs, right? So that's kind of what happened to me playing in the Ontario Hockey League and the ECHL and getting up to the American Hockey League. And then, when you're fighting guys in the American Hockey League one step away from the show, I mean, that there's a decision, honestly, right there where it's like, are you going to start taking boxing lessons and get on steroids? And that was something I wasn't willing to do. And I look back now and you see a lot of the players that have passed away have CTE. That's a job that's a really tough job. And I always had this kind of feeling that committing myself all the way to do that job wasn't worth the price to pay. And that's probably why that's exactly why I only made it as far as I did. So, looking back on this now, and there's, I don't know if there's, 6, 7, a dozen enforcers that have passed away. You got another bunch with CTE. Let's see what happens to some of these guys that have had multiple concussions 10 years from now, if they're still going to remember who they are even. So I avoided a lot of that, and I didn't take a lot of blows to the head. I mean, to me, hockey fighting is extremely barbaric. You sit there, you grab each other, and you just punch each other in the face as hard as you can. I mean, you're not ducking, you're not moving. There's no sweet science in a hockey fight, right? It's just total barbarianism at its finest. But part of that is kind of stupid too. You don't just sit there and take blows to the head, right?
Right.
Man, I want to be able to, I'm still a certified public accountant today. I can coach youth hockey. I can write a book. I still have my brains intact, and some players don't. And those players that paid the price, they could be having some difficulties. And the ultimate is someone like Chris Simon, unfortunately, taking his life. That's kind of an extreme situation. But that's, guys like Matt Rempe and those guys coming up that you're going to get into multiple fights throughout your career. That's a possibility of, an end result waiting for you down the road. So just make sure it's worth it.
Yes.
That's good to I was literally messaging Brandon. I'm like, how do we, talk about Matt Rempe here as well? I'm sure you've been watching, and we've been the National Hockey League's kind of gone away from that bruiser style, and now you kind of see Matt Rempe come in and he does that. So I mean, is any of that concerning to you then?
There is part of it that they are making the choice to do that. I mean, I'm sure he realizes at this point, or a lot of people realize, hey, if I take a lot of blows to the head, there could be consequences down the road. So, when I signed my NHL contract, it was $150,000 in the show, $30,000 in the American Hockey League, and $20,000 in the ECHL. I'm sure you're signing a minimum of $700,000 or $800,000. Does it become somewhat worth it at that point? I mean, that's a decision someone's going to have to make. Someone like Rempe he's got such a long reach. I would advise him to maybe use that and protect his head a bit more and pick his spots. You know, he can hold the guy. I mean, maybe it's not as exciting. I know all the fans love to guys just throwing as opposed to getting in there and being kind of tactical and trying to avoid getting hit and then getting a couple of hits in. But he's got that long reach. I don't think he uses that reach to his advantage. And if he learns to use that reach to his advantage, he's not going to take any shots to the head, and B, he's going to be virtually unbeatable. So that would be my advice to him.
That's good. That's good.
Yes, and that kind of leads us into Toledo, because Toledo was kind of known for that kind of play. And I mean, you played 258 games, 120 goals, 85 assists, 205 points, and 1,002 penalty minutes, which is just crazy to see. But what kind of led you to Toledo?
Oh, that's real simple. I had one offer. I had one phone call. That was it. So I didn't get drafted. And when I said, you know, you get that feeling that you're coming into the OHL and now you got yourself an agent. Well, now you're 20 years old and you're washed up, and the agent says, yeah, I think you should consider going to play Canadian college and play college hockey. Beat it. Like, get lost, right? So it's like, you know, I still kind of felt like I want to take a shot at this. And one day I came home and my mom said, Mark, you got a call from a guy by the name of Chris McSorley, and there's a team down in Toledo, and he'd like you to try out for it. That was it. So I went down there and I made the team, and I remember my pay was I think it was $226.10. And this is a quick story about this. It was funny. It was me and two other guys that we were just happy to make the team. All these other guys that came down from the American Hockey League, and Chris McSorley and the owner had offered them like whatever their salary was, and they got like an envelope of like $300 or $400 a week. Then everyone's getting envelopes, and me and these two other guys find out, you guys are all getting envelopes. Where's our envelope? We don't get any envelope. I'm like that guy in what's the movie?
Meet the Millers, isn't it?
They take the drugs to Mexico. Oh, we're the Millers.
Yeah.
And then they start. You're getting 10,000. You're getting $500,000, and the guy goes, "You guys are getting paid for this." That was me. That's like, you guys are getting paid. I'm getting like $200, and I'm just happier than happy can be. And I find out all these guys are getting envelopes. I'm getting no envelopes. That just a kind of inside story of the Toledo Storm.
Is that so? That was the first year, right? Is that you got the call, you got the offer? Is that did you get any offers after that first season? Like, what made you stay in Toledo? I'm assuming it was the only call, or what?
Yes. No, nobody wanted me after the first season. So the second season, and I scored 41 goals and 31 assists. I had a great season, 77 points, 16 goals in the playoffs. We win a Riley Cup again, and I get an opportunity with the Winnipeg Jets. So I had picked up an agent at this time, and I had signed a 3-way contract with Winnipeg. So I went to Winnipeg for the summer and trained with them, and went to their camp. Got assigned to Springfield Falcons in the American Hockey League, and then I quickly played myself out of the American Hockey League. So after 26 games, it was evident that I wasn't able to play at that level, and a big part of that, unfortunately, is skating. And I was a bigger guy, and as Dan Savick would say, back in the day, you could time how fast I could skate by a speed dial or by a sundial. So that's you have to be a little bit faster than that in today's game, and there's just something that if you can't skate, you can't play, and I'm kind of having that with a bunch of kids that I've recruited to play 16U AA. I mean, if you can't skate at a AA level, I can't use you. I can't put you out on the ice. So, that was kind of my demise, and I didn't have the best of attitudes about it, to be honest with you. I mean, unfortunately, we have to look back in our lives and say, this moment in your life, the way you acted was kind of like, was pretty immature. And like, rather than kind of like sucking it up and saying, okay, my first go didn't try, let's go back to the East Coast Hockey League, kind of work on myself and maybe give another shot. I kind of just like, I looked at the writing of the wall. I looked at what they really wanted me to do. Was just like turn myself into an absolute killer. And like I said, I wasn't really prepared to do that. And then there was just something kind of at me at that point that kind of died, and I kind of knew like the dream was over. So then I just banged around the East Coast Hockey League for a little bit longer, and that was it.
What was your favorite part about playing in Toledo? Because we've heard a lot of stories about the days back then, but what was your favorite part?
I mean, the fans were great. I mean, we would after games, we would always go to Arnie's or Consol Tavern. There'd always be a group of fans there. And like Barry Soskin, of course, was like, I can't confirm or deny, was probably like taken from the till from all the beer concessions and all that, and had like, stack of $3,000 or $4,000. And it's like, let's go to the bar. And like everyone would go. Like, that was the thing. It wasn't like 4 or 5 guys went and like a bunch of guys went here and a bunch of guys. The whole team, we were always, like, a lot of the time, always together. Even to this day, we're on a group text because we got together for a 30-year reunion.
Oh, wow.
And that's just the way we were. We were just kind of always together. So exciting time. I mean, like, on the road was fun. You don't realize it at the time, but some moments in your life you look back and say, those are some of the greatest days of my life. And those 2 years were definitely the greatest for of my life as far as hockey and just as part of my youth. It was an amazing experience. And there's one thing, I'll be honest with you, that I have to confess, and it's probably something I've chased my entire life, is that roar of the crowd. So like after a fight, when I would hear Diesel, 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 I friggin' love that, man. Like, I just love that. And I don't think today there is a greater high than hearing 5,000 people chant your name. So unfortunately for me, I didn't get it up to the 20,000 plus level, but 5,000 level something. So
that's awesome.
I love how you say like your favorite part is like the first thing you said was that was the fans of Toledo, and like that rings so true even today. Like, Brandon, we talked in the beginning with you, Mark, is like, we're from Grand Rapids. Like, we go down to Toledo and we're embraced by the city as well. Everybody's coming up to us. So like, then that's what the players say too, is like the fans, they make it so that minor league experience is like an NHL experience for them. Mm-hmm. And so like, I love that you point that out from even the time that you played back in the Storm, like it still follows through until today with the Walleye. So I love that.
Yeah, Toledo is a absolute great hockey town, and I'm honored to be part of it. So.
It's something that wasn't even on my radar until last year, and it's just grown so crazily fast. And now here we are talking with you, one of a Toledo Storm legend here. So I mean, it's just crazy to see like that how big everything has gone in Toledo. So question I have for you. As a player with Toledo, so how did that shape your perspective on the game of hockey? Based off that style of Travis has told us, is like, you guys were bruisers, you guys were clearing the crease, you guys were big and bad. Like, how did that translate to other areas of your game for you?
Well, I mean, that was just kind of the expectation for me. So, going to the American Hockey League, the expectation, like, finish my checks hard, fight when necessary, get in front of the net, try and win your battles. I think, maintaining that type of game, I think, is necessary to win championships. I mean, when you're playing, when you win 2 championships in a row and you're winning playoff series, you kind of get the feeling of what it takes to win, and it's just grinding the other opponent down. And if you're going to lose a game, make sure they remember they remember something about beating you that isn't pleasant, so knowing that they're going to have to go into your rink the next time and face you again. So, I mean, just constantly putting the pressure on your opponent is something I always tried to do, but, I could only do it to a certain level. So, that was it.
Just punish.
What do you think? What do you think made the sports arena so special? I mean, again, we've only heard stories. We know about, the glass was so much shorter than what it is nowadays. You had the crazy walk from the locker room to the bench, but what made that place so special?
Probably 10-cent beer night, I guess. I mean, there would just be, I think back then you could smoke. So there would be like an air of smoke. You wouldn't even see the fans. You just see like the smoke, and they're all there like yelling and cheering for you. I mean, when you were doing well and you were hitting and fighting, they were the best fans in the world. But when you weren't, they felt that you weren't giving it all. I'll just tell you a little, like the best insult I ever got was from my own hockey fans. So I'm coming over those steps and I'm going to the pass, and the one guy goes, "Diesel, you're no Diesel. You're running on 2 cylinders." Yeah, I'll say.
Oh, that's
great insults of all time. Came in my own barn. So that next period, I probably went and grabbed somebody and beat the piss out of them. So
it's probably part of that 1,000 penalty minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
What was that walk like though? Like I've seen it before in smaller like junior settings, but not in that setting like that. Like walking through the fans to get to the bench, like that had to feel unreal some nights.
And go up and down a set of stairs.
Yeah. I mean, most nights it was great, but I mean, trust me, if you were not playing well, I mean, there's been some instances where they got booed into their dressing room. So. Yeah, it's kind of like buyer beware in that rink. Like, bust your ass and give it your all, or face the consequences.
So that first Riley Cup championship, you scored probably the most famous goal in Toledo hockey history, to get the game-winning and cup-winning goal in double overtime. Can you kind of just walk us through that? And what was that like celebration you see in the playoffs? Like everybody's just coming to you, jumping on top of you. Like, what was it like?
It's the ultimate ride. It's like what's the movie Point Break? And then Johnny and that girl, she's like searching for the ride. The ultimate ride, and that's the ultimate ride. So for any hockey player to experience that, it was great. But what happened prior to that is at the first overtime period, I didn't get a shift. So we're in that, second intermission for overtime, and McSorley goes, I think it was Hicksey, Duncan, and Deazeley. Let's go. So it's like 40 seconds into that shift, get open in the slot. And I always tell my hockey players, it's like the goal scorers move the puck, and they're the trail guy. You're that third guy coming in for that back, that diagonal pass, quick one-timer, and it went in, and the rest was history. So it was an ultimate experience, and I wish every hockey player could experience that at least once. And I'm extremely fortunate that I got to enjoy that moment. And it's a moment that's, I'll obviously never forget. So
it's something that Toledo's been chasing. We've been so close the last 2 years, it feels like. And I know with the city, like we've been so close to being able to win that Kelly Cup. What did it mean to you to be able to bring the city of Toledo the championship from like the player's point of view?
Well, then I wouldn't be the last person to score the last championship goal in Toledo hockey history. So as each year goes on, it's like my legend grows and grows and grows. That being said, though, yes, I would like to see them win one. I haven't watched any of the games recently. I mean, I keep hearing, of course, well, you need to kind of like build a bigger, tougher team for the playoffs. And, maybe Toledo hockey, they're trying, some fans say they're trying to get away from that. I don't know what's true or not in this situation, but I mean, yeah, you kind of need a big, heavy team in the playoffs. It's going to be able to be aggressive and physical and finish their checks throughout 7-game series. And, for whatever reason, Toledo hasn't been able to quite do that yet. I mean, I wish them the best of luck, but it'll happen eventually. I mean, mathematics has got to start getting on their side right now, as long as they're not, the Toronto Maple Leafs of the East Coast Hockey League. So,
yeah. So this year you had the 30th anniversary celebration. What was it like to get everybody back together, and whose ever idea it was to take the cup to the bar? Did you all go to the bar after?
Yeah, we did. And I'm happy to say the entire weekend, I stiffed all my buddies. I didn't pay for one drink.
That's
Hey,
awesome.
you shouldn't have had to. You won this. You won it for them. So the drinks should have been on everybody else.
Yeah, without you, they're not
some
there.
of my teammates pissed at me for that. But that's the whole thing. They try to offer, and they say, I'll pay. And then they go, well, Deazeley's a cheapskate. He doesn't pay for anything. So I think I bought Alex Hicks a lunch. So that entire weekend, I spent $30. So that was really good about the weekend. It was good to catch up with some of the players. One of them in particular, Marco, I talk to like on a daily basis now. We talk stocks and investments. But yeah, it was great to see everybody. It was great. Toledo does an amazing job with the Toledo Hockey Hall of Fame and bringing us kind of out there, bringing us back for these events. I think them creating a tradition that's deep seated in the community will only harvest future results for the hockey clubs. So I mean, bravo to them, and thank you very much for having us out there. They do an amazing job when it comes to that.
The chase for the Stanley Cup continues, and the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is just as hot as it is on the ice. With same-game parlays, live betting, odds boost, and so much more, don't miss out as the Stanley Cup playoffs wind down. Currently, the Florida Panthers are a plus 102 money line, and if you are new to DraftKings, you gotta check this out. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369. In Connecticut, help go for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Will Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. cdkng.com/football for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources.
Why do you think Toledo, even to this day, is still just such a crazy hockey market?
Wow, there's not that much else to do there. I mean, in the winter time, what else are you going to do, right? I mean, I guess
that is fair.
Football going on there. You got the Red Wings up the road. I guess they got casinos there now, but there's a tradition there from the Mercuries and the Gold Diggers, and like I say, I think it's ingrained in the community, and I think sometimes you get more people out than you don't. But they've been very successful. I mean, we've won 2 Riley Cups. They've won a bunch of cups with the Gold Diggers and with the Mercuries, and it's just like it just says, it's just deep rooted in the community, I think.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So your post career, you became an author.
I did.
What kind of led you to writing a book? Led you to wanting to write a book?
Well, there came a point in my life where I had to do some deep soul searching, and how I ended up in a hospital bed, 320 pounds and addicted to drugs. And it was like, how did I get here? And it was really kind of like analyzing my hockey career and, going to analyzing my parents, in particular, my father. So the book is called The Long Car Ride Home. You can get it on Amazon. There's a link in my Instagram page. You can click on that and buy the book. If you go to Amazon and just type it in, you won't find it right away. You got to go to the book section and then go to the book section and then type the book in. But it was an attempt to unravel myself. Like why am I so messed up? And part of that is, I think The Long Car Ride Home is something that you would call at the beginning of shadow work, is analyzing my father. And in analyzing my father, I realized there was different types of narcissists. So I learned about 6 different types of narcissists, and I applied those personality types into the competitive youth hockey community, which would be, very similar if it was basketball or baseball or piano recital or academics. You're just gonna have some narcissistic parents that are driven, that are living through their kids. And in my research, I'm looking at, what type my father was. And then I start analyzing like kind of I call like my issues, right? So I have these issues, like I'm a sore loser. I get and being a sore loser, you can kind of translate that like in the Toledo Storm, like when we would play, when we would scrimmage for lunch. McSorley would send me out against one of my own players to go goon him so we could win a $10 lunch. Like that's how competitive we were. But it's like, you're brutally competitive. You procrastinate. You self-sabotage. I mean, there's a list of 17 issues I have. And then it's like, oh my God, my father turned me into a narcissist. And then I'm like, I start analyzing myself. And I just come to the conclusion that like, I'm no better than my father. So my father, after every hockey game, during the car ride home, if I didn't score a goal, would be extremely, extremely verbally abusive. He didn't hit me. But it got to the point where it was like terrifying. Like if I didn't score a goal, I'm getting undressed, age 10, 11, 12. Like I know what's waiting for me. Like my father is just going to tear me a new one. And so what starts from there is like, I start disassociating. So, I'm a disassociator by nature. That's not a lot of times you have to get my attention because I could be somewhere else. So that all just started getting ripped onto pieces because my father determined that I didn't play a great hockey game. So, I talk about narcissistic rage. I talk about becoming a bully, being hypersensitive to being bullied, craving external validation, developing a harsh, evil inner critic, which, I think part of that and part of my book is like, if you're going to make it to the National Hockey League and you're marginally talented, you need to have something in you driving you. Like you're either you're extremely insecure and you need to prove to the world that you're like a special person. And a lot of that is because you were viciously narcissistically abused in childhood. So those people that have the biggest issues end up a lot of times accomplishing the greatest feats, but then they also end up getting addicted to drugs and self-sabotaging themselves, and it just becomes a vicious cycle. So, procrastination, substance abuse addiction, becoming a narcissistic. I even have a chapter. It says, becoming a narcissistic asshole. I even describe to you in great detail how you became a narcissistic asshole. So if you read this book, you will get an idea of the dysfunctional hockey family. You got most of the time the narcissistic father, the enabling mother, the golden child, the scapegoat child, and possibly an invisible child. And then you talk about all the dysfunctions like emotional incest, where you're always putting your parents first. that's where you develop codependency issues. Those are the people that say, well, I'm sorry all the time, because they always want, or they get it turns into people pleasing issues in adulthood, because you're always in craving external validation. You always want, at the end of the day, just your father to say, hey, you played a good game. And that builds up over time. And that relationship, that father-son relationship, is the perfect breeding ground for complex post-traumatic stress disorder. To a situation where the child's in contact with the parent. It happened during their most formative years in life, between the ages of like 6, the earlier 6, 7, 8, 9, you're in theta state. So you're just constantly like downloading information. And when your parents are being negative and they're projecting all their negative shit onto you, that accumulates, you absorb that, and then you ultimately become what your parents want you to be. So in essence, you lose a sense of authenticity. You lose a sense of authenticity, and you're disconnected from your parents. Later on in life, you're going to have a lot of issues. So it's a 3-hour read. It breaks down the narcissistic family, the types of dysfunctions, how people cope, confession of my narcissistic traits that were projected onto me, and what I'm doing to heal myself from them. But it's amazing. I mean, this book, the last 2 years, I've seen parents threaten kids. I've seen parents get into fights with other parents, shouting matches, almost fisticuffs. I've even seen parents on my own team getting into fights. Then you don't have to worry about parents getting into fights with the other parents. I got to worry about parents getting into fights with my own parents, and it's like, you're setting an example for your kids. I mean, parents are smuggling alcohol into competitive youth hockey games. That's a great idea. I mean, also selling alcohol at youth hockey games, especially these CAHA games that are really important, and all the parents are like on top of each other. And it's just, it's just a recipe for pandemonium, man. It's just like, part of me becoming a youth hockey coach is just for the dramatic action of the job. It's like parent, and I'm really going to get it this year, probably as a head coach, but as an assistant coach for the last 2 years, is like, the one parent's like bugging the coach about, why isn't my son on the power play? And like, we're 35 games into the season, and he scored 2 goals.
Sounds like our power play.
Really? I said, but we're actually using your son and he actually was a really good penalty killer. So it's like, hey, it wasn't like the kid wasn't getting ice time. He just wasn't on the power play because he wasn't power play worthy. But he could kill penalties, and he was getting ice time. And the father didn't like it because he wanted to see his father scoring goals. And that's the majority of what any hockey parents that watch this scoring goals is important, obviously, but it's not everything. And I think when you put scoring goals above and beyond every other aspect of the game, you're gonna set your children up for failure. So just remember that scoring isn't everything. So that's it. That's the best advice I could give parents.
I can remember when I played youth hockey, I went through a stretch when I didn't score a lot of goals, and I was kind of upset about it. And my coach come up to me, he goes, "What's kind of bothering you?" And I was like, "Oh, I just haven't scored in a long time." He's like, "Well, you're doing the right things, just so on and so forth." That night scored a goal. And it was just like, it's just like, just that reassurance from, your coach that, hey, you're doing the right things, just keep plugging away and good things will happen. And it just so happened that night it went well for me. But it really kind of, hits home with being a former youth player. And I loved every minute of it. I never really had any bad experiences. So I personally, I'm going to pick up your book. I want to read it. So I'm excited to read it.
Yeah. And then I appreciate that. And it's a truth book. And some parents may read it and say, well, this guy's an idiot, doesn't know what he's talking about. But you will have that. Hopefully you have that day. And I can't stress this enough. I mean, my father will probably never see this. My father's still alive. My mother passed away. In my story, my mom was the enabler. And for all you enablers, when you absorb negative energy and constant rages over absolutely nothing because your spouse has the emotional maturity of an 8-year-old child, if you absorb that energy for 55 years, you do so at your own peril. Okay. Because my mother ended up passing away. I'm not going to blame my father. I was emotionally immature too, and I could have been a better son to my mother. But there's a reason to say the good die young. Okay. So like this is for any families that are a narcissistic family. I say in the beginning of the book, I'm your ghost of things yet to come. Like right now, my father, he lives by himself. He's 85, 86 years old. I'll try and call him, and he doesn't pick up the phone. My father has never called me in my entire life just to say, hey, son, how are you doing? It's not that he's a bad guy, and I love my dad, and I understand that's just the way he is. And part of writing this book was a lot of way for me to forgive him for the abuse he put towards me, the family, and my mother without him even really understanding what he was doing. And that's what I say, if you're a narcissist, I say you are a puppet of your past with your former abusers pulling your strings, because when you get angry over, overly upset, and I talk about it in my book, like if I lost in tennis, I would smash my tennis racket. I mean, I would get kicked out of tennis tournaments for my behavior. Like I was kind of John McEnroe without the talent. So all I was good is yelling at profanity and getting kicked out of tournaments for my extremely immature behavior. I mean, I would have chess sets, and if I didn't win chess sets, I'd pick it up and smash it to pieces, and then you have to look back on your life eventually and just go, gosh, you're an idiot, and it's just like, if you don't have that day, you'll never get to like kind of grow and realize that your programmed reactions are not the best way to respond to most everyday situations. And unfortunately, my father, he's 85, turning 86, and we all love the guy, but he's going to die with the emotional maturity of an 8-year-old child. He just constantly stuck in wounded inner child mode because he never dealt with the traumatic abuse he took from his grandfather in his childhood. So if you don't deal with it, the generational cycle of abuse will continue. And that's what the book's about. And it just kind of like hones in on competitive youth hockey. So again, the long car ride home. I'd like to do any other podcasts or talk about this with anyone in any possible way. So,
I mean, one, just again, not knowing the past, just I love how open you are about this. Obviously, you have a book about it too. Just be able to speak transparently about it, though, like that's a beautiful thing. And we'll make sure the link for his book will be dropped in the description of the episode on YouTube and wherever the podcast is posted as well. We'll make sure we get that out there to the folks too, because I think it's an important read for a lot of parents who have a kid in any sport, not just hockey. And they, like you said, they might not think they're that person, but it could also just teach them a lot of lessons for the future. So that is, it's a great thing. And
it does. It's, and the one thing I agree with the parents is like, and I'm going to talk about, I'm going in coaching. This year is my first year as a head coach with a 16U AA team out here in California. We're team 2. So in that situation, we're not team 1. We're not the A team. We're the W or 16U AA B team. We're also kind of younger. I got more of the 09 kids. The one team's got 8 kids, but what I want to I'm going to mention, and I noticed little things like coaching them. Like I have one kid come up and say, "Hey, sorry, coach, I didn't really have the best game today," and I could kind of I could see him kind of looking at his father, so it's like you start, those people in life that say they're sorry all the time when they really shouldn't say they're sorry. There's a reason for that. And it's because their parents are like narcissistically abusing them. They get the kids ultimately to be like a surrogate spouse, so like you're just there to, please your mother or father. And when that happens, then you become a trained codependent, and then you end up seeking relationships that end up being very similar to the ones that you experienced or watching your mother and father. That's why that cycle of narcissists end up marrying narcissists and codependents and so on and so on and so on. So, I'm here to like bring it to the parents' attention. But it's ultimately up to them to kind of like realize the errors of their ways and make the necessary adjustments. But it's just like, first of all, kids know when they didn't have a good game. And what I'm going to tell the kids is like, listen, you can make as many mistakes as you want. I mean, to a point where you have to learn from your mistakes, but the effort and your compete has to be there. And if a team's going to beat you, like make sure you lay a hit on them. Make sure they kind of remember you. Like make sure it shows that you care. Like there's nothing wrong with hating to lose, but you have to hate it for a point, learn from the experience and cut it loose. And my problem in the past and other people like that, when they have a bad game or a loss, it can affect them for like a day, maybe 2 days. And people that are really bad, narcissistically abused, it might take them like a week to get over. Like there's nothing wrong. Like you're a human being. Like go like be all poopy pants about it and throw like your little hissy fit for like 5 minutes, and then get over it. You know what I mean? I get upset with my wife when in a situation she doesn't like. Just give me 1 minute to get pissed off about it. Just give me 1 minute and I'll shake it off. Don't get mad at me for being mad right away. Just like cut me a little bit. I'll do the same with her. She'll get mad and I'll look at her. I'll let it go. And then half an hour later say, I'm sorry for getting upset. And I'm like, no worries. It's just like people are going to do that and you get upset about it. Great. But when people that keep festering on it too, it's really bad. And one thing I want to really kind of talk about this, because people that relate to this book have depression, issues with depression and anxiety. And one note I'd like to leave, somebody else explained this to me one time. It's like depression and anxiety is the devil, because what the devil wants to do is take what God gives to you. So he wants you to think about your past and get angry. He wants you to think about your past and get sad. He wants you to think about your past and you're going to think about seeking revenge. Then the devil's got you, And the flip side to that is the future. Like I'm going to worry about the future. I'm going to worry about things that possibly may not even happen. And that's going to prevent me from thinking about what God gives us all is that present moment. So people that are narcissistically abused, a lot of times they live in the past or they live in thinking about the future. And that's a big reason for depression and anxiety. So, I mean, anyone that's ever been narcissistically abused, any sport where your parents were, mean and vicious to you in the car, you really need to read my book. And I always kind of joke and say like to parents, like in the movie Batman, I say, I'm your Bane. I'm like, this is the instrument of your liberation. So you read this book, you'll understand why you are so messed up, why you're messing up your child, and what you can do to stop doing that.
Yeah, you're 100% right in everything you just said. And I hope people listening to this, if they have kids in sports, they do pick up the book and read it. I do want to transition a little bit into your coaching and stuff like that you're doing now. I mean, what do you think is the biggest thing this sport, hockey, needs to do to attract more kids to play?
Out in California, it's kind of expensive. I know in other states, it's probably a little bit more affordable. I guess more opportunity, like more summer tournaments, like more clinics. I mean, we're trying to think about that with the Orange County Hockey Club or OCHC out here. As far as growing the sport, I've had a couple of ideas. One of them is if they joined a club and they stayed for 8 years, they could have like a little bit of a scholarship at the end. Trying combining athletics with hockey, I think would be beneficial. Obviously, we want kids, maintaining good grades while they're playing club hockey. But I'd have to noodle on that question a little bit more about how to, increase participation in the game.
It's fair. It's a tough one. So
yeah.
If we had the answer, we'd have more kids in there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So the book, you've got a lot of things that you want to stay away from, right? For parents, for advice. What advice would you give parents and coaches to support and encourage young athletes in a healthy, constructive way?
As long as the effort is there, hey son, and you're in the car, hey son, I know you didn't have your best game today. Shake it off, but I loved watching you play. The child knows he didn't play well. Like, you don't need to would you like it if you had a big wound and someone came and started rubbing salt in it? Like, would you like that? No, of course not. As long as but then if it's continuing and the effort isn't there, then why isn't the effort there? Like, who is the child playing for? Right. And if the child's playing for the parent, it's not going to work. Right. It's not going to work. That I can promise you that. That's going to end in disaster. And I've seen a few situations where a child just wanted to stop playing club hockey, and the parents were upset about it, but ultimately they supported their son, and they're like, all right, well, just play high school hockey for a while. We just want you to do something. Like, we want you to just go out and get some exercise a couple times a week, and you're like, you're hanging out with friends and you're doing something as opposed to going home, playing video games and having Cheeto dust covered all over you, So, in that situation, it worked out. But in other situations, if the parent's really getting that upset, then you have a problem. That's a problem. If the child doesn't want to play or the child isn't quite as good, and I've had to tell some parents, I had to have some conversation. Yeah, I'm sorry, your son isn't good enough for AA, and fortunately, all the parents have been pretty receptive about that. I'm always waiting for the one that's going to disagree and call me an idiot and go on social media and say I'm an asshole or something like that. But ultimately, I think those parents, it is a small minority. I will say this: writing a book about crazy hockey parents, the large majority of hockey parents are pretty good, and that I can attest to. And like all the parents. But at the same time, I've been the assistant coach for the last 2 years too. So I know the head coach has taken more abuse, and obviously I have, and I've heard some of it. But yeah, most of the time the parents are okay. But listen, coaches are trying to do the best job they can as well. We're human beings. We're going to make mistakes. Referees are going to make mistakes. I've heard now that they're making it a little bit easier to become a referee because so many parents are just like, they're like, all right, I'm ready for my job. I'm ready to get screamed, yelled at, potentially threatened, have someone wait for me in the parking lot over a youth hockey game. All right, sign me up for $60 an hour. I can't wait, man. Like, what a job.
Yeah, the guy I sat next to all season was pretty much ripping the refs all year. So
hey now, uncalled for. Oh,
it's a tough job.
Yeah, it is a tough job. How do you balance the competitiveness of hockey with maintaining a positive and nurturing environment for young players as a coach?
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, I've been thinking about this. The definition of a good coach is a coach that can push his players to the limit without giving them complex post-traumatic stress disorder or their parents filing child abuse charges and getting the kids to ask for more. There's your definition of a good coach. So part of that I'm going to start with my players is like, okay, like simple stuff. It's June 11th. You don't like give your kids like a massive workout routine to start in the beginning. It's like, get up in the morning and do a set of push-ups. Go outside and do 3 sprints for 10 seconds as hard as you can. So you gave me a set of push-ups. What does that take? A minute? Then you give me 3 sprints and then some rest time in between that. It's going to take 2 minutes. Get on the wall and do a wall sit. Get your legs to burn and hold that for 2 minutes. So one thing I'm going to do with the players is like, I'm going to do all this with them. So it's not like I'm not telling you what to do. I'm showing you what to do, and try and keep up with your 52-year-old coach and good luck, because
that's what Rob Brendamore does.
Your ass. So that's kind of like how I'm going to coach, so if any of my players see this, be ready.
That's a full Rod Brendamore approach, because he does something kind of like that on the bike. Stationary. So that's pretty cool to hear.
How do you believe the hockey community can address and reduce the negative behaviors exhibited by some parents in youth hockey?
My book should be mandatory for every youth hockey organization.
I just figured you want to plug it again.
Hockey organization in the world, and that's ultimately what I have to do. And I got to be honest, I haven't been selling it. I haven't been working at it to sell it. And in order to sell books, you need to put in effort and probably spend some marketing money. And I haven't really done that. I mean, putting together a youth hockey team, and right now I'm trying to set up scrimmage games and get the kids on the ice as much as I can. I mean, that's kind of step one, but I think it's going to be organic, as I coach and I talk to more parents, and more parents read the book and refer it to other people, they'll start understanding my message. I mean, it's I think awareness and education is important, but you have to understand with especially with toxic narcissists, they're gonna read this and think there's nothing wrong with them. I'm fortunate, and I'm happy to get to the place where I can say, man, there is so much wrong with me. You have no idea. But all I can say is I'm aware and I'm working on it. I mean, that's the difference between some narcissists, is that they're going to think that there's no problem at all, and how they treat people is perfectly fine, and they will keep acting the way that they do. But maybe for some people, they will see it, recognize the error of their ways, and start making the necessary adjustments to improve themselves as a human being.
I wonder if the team would be open to putting it in the store, or having like books. Are you out in Toledo at all, Mark, during the season? Or are you strictly in California?
Right now in California, I mean, I can talk to them and see if they, they would put it in the store. Like I said, I need to, you don't make any sales if you don't make any calls, right? So I haven't made any calls lately, so I can't really expect to make that many sales. So a lot of that's on me at the moment, but that's definitely a good idea, and I'll, look into it.
Especially when they do the storm throwback nights and things like that. So that'd probably be a good timing for you too.
So I have I guess it's kind of a rule question, because it's changed, I've heard, and I could be wrong, and if I am, you can correct me, with coaching, because it's all under USA Hockey, right?
Yes.
So is this true? When you're shorthanded, you can no longer ice the puck.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, how do you coach kids when you're shorthanded to not ice the puck when that is what you were taught to do as a player? Because when I heard this rule as a former player, I mean, I didn't play, I just played travel AA, but, and I didn't kill penalties. I was too slow. But like, that would just, like, it made no sense to me. Like,
yeah. Dump the puck with elegance and finesse. It doesn't go past the goal line. I guess they put it in for the the shorthanded team to hold on to the puck more like puck possession, and try and like get over the red line at least. But I mean, at that point, if you get over the red line and you got some speed on you, might as well try and take it to the net and score a goal too. So maybe from that perspective, it might create some more offensive opportunities for the shorthanded team. But yeah, if you're just in trouble, just dump it in and take a whistle, and you just take a penalty kill 1 second at a time. So that's it.
That was just one thing I found so bizarre. I couldn't imagine me playing hockey now and icing it shorthanded, and it's icing when you're shorthanded. I was just like, first time I heard it, I was like, this makes no sense.
Yeah, it's a little strange. It's a little strange. So it's like I'm in the bizarro world,
Mark, we'll do the last question here with you and then wrap it up with you. You do not have to drop right when we're saying like thank you and it's ending. We'll hit pause on this, make sure you're good with everything, and we'll go from there. Okay. So last question I've got for you, Mark, is looking back in your career, there's a lot of achievements, there's a lot of things that happen, but what achievement are you most proud of when you look back on your hockey career?
I am probably most proud of playing with the Menor Icebreakers in 2019. So if you look up my statistics, I got this crazy notion. I remember it was April 25th, 2018, and I got the idea. I said, I'm going to play professional hockey again. And I was like 320 pounds and, dealing with addiction. And I'm like, well, if you can play hockey, then you're in good shape, and then you're probably not addicted, and then that's going to be great for your overall health. So that's when I told Dan Savage, I said, yeah, I'm going to come back and play with the Toledo Walleye. And he stops for a second. He says, well, let me tell you something, Mark. You can't. You're too old. You're too slow. And back in the day, they could time how fast you could skate by a sundial. So he made no like buddy, like you got no chance. And okay, fair enough. He's probably right. But I kept working out, and I put it on social media. And I'm sure people thought like, I'd gone all 6s and 7s, as British people say, right? And then Ian Duncan called me. He was the coach for the Menor Icebreakers in the Federal Hockey League. Now it's called the Federal Prospects Hockey League. And at this point, I had lost about 50 pounds, and I had stopped using, and I was in good shape. And he said, you want to come back and play a few games? And I did. So I ended up playing 5 games, and I got a goal and an assist and 2 fights. So one of them I did okay, and this other guy, I fought this guy that was like his name was Chase Tippin. He was like a power lifter that just wanted to like play hockey and beat people up for fun. And I remember like we were talking about the fight, and then when it started, I was kind of like, this probably wasn't such a good idea. So I ended up getting like a big Barney Rubble on my forehead, and that was it. So I was like, man, if this guy doesn't put me in the hospital at age 47, that's a win. So and you look up my stats, I got a goal and assist and 10 penalty minutes in the Federal Prospects Hockey League at age 47. So I'm kind of proud of that.
Unbelievable.
That's unreal. Unreal. I love it.
I thought you were gonna say getting Eric Lindros in the Hall of Fame kind of thing.
He probably would have got there on his own, to be honest.
No, it was a lot of you.
Oh, man. Well, with that, thank you so much, Mark, for taking the time to sit and chat with us and give us some amazing insight to Toledo, and not just Toledo, even the OHL and your book and coaching as a whole. And this, we got a lot of fun content coming with a couple of your teammates possibly coming. So I just want to thank you, really.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. It was so fun. Like, I didn't know much about the Toledo Storm before, or you, and now I've learned so much throughout this interview. So it was perfect.
Absolute pleasure. Anytime.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. This is awesome. Make sure, like he said, head over to his Instagram, follow the link, pick up that book on Amazon. Like we said, it'll also be in the description of the episode. But yes, Mark, thank you. This was unreal. This might be my top interview that we've done so far. Just don't tell Brandon Hawkins I said that.
Yeah.
All right.
He did say that we had to get you. Like,
Yeah,
I talked to him, and he's like, "You got to get Diesel," and I was like, "We already got him."
Yeah, he just got to slow down his butter churn a little bit.
Oh, thank you again, Mark. We appreciate you.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Hockeytown West Podcast. Be sure to check us out on Twitter at HockeytownWPod and your host, Nick at GR Hockey Guy and Brandon at Brandon GR Hockey.